All right. Hello, hello. Welcome. How are you guys doing today? Today is a nice special Sunday because let's see. Well, welcome to Sound Engravers channel. My channel. And thank you guys for waiting. There was we just right as I started streaming, there actually was a literal stream in the kitchen. Apparently one of the bathtubs upstairs when running actually is leaking water into our kitchen sink. That's fun. There's always something, but let's go ahead and go to the comments. And actually, before the chat, I'm probably going to take this banner down. That was a Second Chances, which you can find on my website. But I think I'm going to also work with the camera today. So let's see what that looks like. Let's take the banner off first, and let's see what the camera looks like. All right. So hopefully that looks okay. It's kind of bright. I've been working with lighting, and now I have to get used to staring at the screen. And it's really tall. This is a really tall computer, so we'll see how that works. It's still kind of, you'd be surprised. There's a dark interface. It's a dark screen. I have an extension with a dark screen surrounding StreamYard, and it still looks bright. So I do apologize for the very bright light. But anyway, you can see my room's a little bit more messy than it was before. We've got Prof's bass guitar there, and also amp. He has an amp, and then I have a little bit of my PA system there because my PA system, which we used for our wedding, I haven't used before. Unfortunately, it's a nice PA system too, but it was in my closet before we opened the closet to open up the two ways there. So I have more stuff in my room, and it's definitely something to get used to. That is for sure. So anyway, let's welcome the chat and just have a nice conversation on when you should hope and then when you should just quit. And then of course we have a quote. I don't know, is it a quote or a lyric of a song? I'm not sure, but Coffee, I'll just go ahead and put it up. Coffee says, like a great man once said, you've got to know when you hold them and know when to fold them, which I think is a poker reference, if I'm knowing the term correctly. But my wonderful prof and channel member says, Snarfer never quits. Nope, never say die. In case you didn't know, Snarfer was pretty much the best addition to the second season of the Thundercats 1980s animated series. By the way, actually, I haven't even checked audio. Does audio look good? Yeah, audio looks great. Does audio sound good? Yeah, that's good. All right, so looks like we have a lot of people in. Welcome, everyone. I don't mean for my face to look like it's like glowing a light. So we'll work on that. Maybe I could turn on I could turn on the overhead lights. That's not what you call it. The main bedroom light, but I also never like the look of that. So we'll see. If my face looks too bright, then maybe I'll change that. But anyway, let's welcome the chat. Brian Gilmartin says, sometimes the man knows when to walk away. Yeah, a wise man knows when to walk away. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Ghost Planet Max Inc. 1.0. Welcome. Got Big Al also says, you've been cleaning a fan and you got lost in a dust storm, but the airflow is worlds better now. That's never fun, like to pull out a filter and then it's just, oh, that's awful. But I'm glad you do have your clean air flowing through just in time too, because in a couple weekends from now, we're gonna head your way. Andreas Yubnub, welcome, Andreas. And Samuel Proctor's in, welcome. Stunning and Brave Megatron is also in. I'll just call Megatron. Good. My prof says coming in loud and clear. Good. Big Al also says sounds good. Good. Awesome. And of course, my wonderful husband says I look absolutely beautiful. Thank you. It's been a long time since I've been on camera. And I didn't want to for the longest time, and I think it was because of this new machine. It's so high, and I'll try to figure it out as we go, but that's just the way it's going to be for a little bit at least. We got okay. I kind of want to call you Noah or Xavier, but NXZW is in. Someone named Bob. Can I just call you Bob? Is in. Thank you. Private Eye, welcome to have. It's good to have you. Welcome. It's not so much to quit, but rather that the only way to win is to not play. We'll talk about quitting. We'll talk about quitting just as a cultural thing in general. I don't even mean pop culture. I just mean culture, like work wise or whatever. But also, I want to talk about hope. Like it's going to be kind of a two-way thing. Hope, when to hope, when to quit. We'll discuss that shortly. Eldridge Fan, welcome, says, you quit Star Wars during that awful Darth Jason storyline. I don't know anything about that part of the EU, so we'll just say that is a take on EU. That's the stuff I haven't read. I still will say so far Darth Plagueis is the best book I have read. I've only read like 7 books of the EU, but so far it's the best. So far it is my favorite. Final Fantasy fan, welcome. Good. Okay. So yeah, I like that thumbnail with Princess Leia because especially her in the 4th, well, we say 4th episode, but the original Star Wars. Her with the princess, the white gown, that kind of flowy gown with her hair and 2 buns and stuff like that. Like she has different iterations of styles and looks as she goes progressively with the trilogy. But that's kind of the first Leia I see when we talk about hope. I do want to talk about hope today. And actually I didn't really even plan on it, but actually it is the first day of Advent. So we have come into the Advent season, which is my favorite time of the year. And the first Sunday marks the prophecy candle, which is the candle for hope, that first purple candle for the Advent wreath. So it's a wonderful tradition. And I think hope is important, but I think hope has been working to the detriment of our culture in many ways. So I kind of want to just start talking and then we'll get back into the chat. Oh, Austin, welcome. Austin Graham. First time seeing a live stream of yours. Well, thank you for coming. You've been a big fan of Professor Geek, and now you wanted to see his beautiful wife. Well, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining. So let's get right in, and then we'll talk amongst ourselves. That doesn't make sense. We'll discuss it. So hopefully you can hear okay. I think I configured the audio. I'm not gonna push it. You guys think I sound fine. So anyway, wanted to talk about hope and how it's really we've seen 2 sides of hope in our culture really within the last decade, and I would say even as far back as when Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, for instance, came into prevalence, in our culture and our psyche, our collective psyche. And the first thing is hope is necessary. Hope is necessary to keep morale, to build and keep morale, and it's also necessary, as people would say, maybe even theologically would say, hope is a virtue. You need to sustain hope. It's kind of like that one really good scene with Peter Jackson's trilogy in The Two Towers, where there's this young kid. He's not equipped to fight. You could see they casted this kid where it looks like he's never been in a battle before. Aragorn says, show me your sword, and then he takes his sword. This was my father's sword, and who are you? He asks this kid these questions, and he says, the kid says to Aragorn, like, the soldiers, the men, they say it's hopeless, because they're about to face this huge orc army. Uruk-hai, not Uruk-hai, Uruk-hai. They're about to face this Uruk-hai army, this formidable force that they think they're gonna die. The kid says it's hopeless, and then Aragorn says, "This is a good sword, and there's always hope." So hope is important. You had figures in something like the Lord of the Rings, like Faramir, Aragorn, Gandalf. Gandalf was a constant person who he was that figure to embolden and edify the race of men against a very uh, formidable, dominating presence of evil, Sauron and his enemies. So there is a very good side to hope, and we must continue working with that kind of hope, for our excuse me, for our own sakes, through our days, and then also just having hope in the good in general. And then also religiously speaking, especially in the day and the season of Advent, the first season, the first week of Advent is hoping and anticipating the coming of Christ. In the biblical sense, we are anticipating, or also in the religious and worship sense, we're anticipating the birth of Christ, not the actual physical birth of Christ, but the birth of Christ in the story of Christ's birth and ministry, death, and resurrection. So there's value, or I would say hope is invaluable. It's an invaluable trait. And so I would think then that this is why people in the pop culture sense are really struggling to let go of things when it's in fact a hopeless case. So what do I mean particularly? We could talk about Star Wars. We could talk about Marvel. We could talk about pretty much anything going on with mainstream media, or really specifically corporate art. I'm going to call it corporate art because Star Wars now is just a cash cow. Like, I don't even know if it's cash cow anymore. Like, it was the name, the brand was, and you can apply the same thing to DC, the DCEU. You could apply this to Marvel. You probably could apply this to even some anime franchises. I'm not really familiar with anime franchises. I would say you could apply the same thing to now Nintendo stories, with the recent film that was, Super Mario Brothers. Now apparently there's going to be a Zelda. Is it going to be live action or whatever? I Why would it be live action? That's so dumb. But in any current adaptation is to the destruction of those stories. We all know this. But there's this, and I'm not saying it's any of you here, but I want us to be aware that there's still this lingering fan base, this lingering community that is so bent on giving people hope, people who don't deserve to be given any hope or any trust. Specifically, like, there are people who have been time and time again disappointed with Star Wars, the Star Wars TV shows, Star Wars projects, Star Wars merchandise, for instance. And then people think, well, if we just hang on, if we just wait a little bit longer. How long have people been waiting? It's been like, well, it's been since 2015. In a couple years, The Force Awakens is going to be 10 years old. That's kind of weird. Wait, no, 27, 2017 is when it came out. Rogue One was 2015, I think. Okay, so a few years. So 2027, Force Awakens will be 10 years old. And that might seem like a distance from now. It might seem like a distance from now, but it's going to come up. And then we're going to realize, oh my gosh, we've been holding on to this false hope for 10 years now. Now, and I'm saying Force Awakens as the impetus of the destruction of Star Wars. People might think, no, it came later, it came earlier. Okay, whatever. That's another debate. But the point is, people have been saying, okay, you know what? I'm not liking these television shows. I'm not liking the toy line. I'm not liking the merchandise. I don't like. I hated what happened to Mandalorian. The Mandalorian in season 3, for instance. Again, this is an example off the top of my head. But you know what? Okay, hated what happened to Kenobi. Hated what happened to the Mandalorian. Ahsoka was stale at the very least, and the stupidest things happened. Like, by the way, this is not my input. This is just kinda on the grapevine what people were saying. People who had so much hope for something like Ahsoka, and then when they saw Ahsoka, and then when they saw even worse, the treatment of Thrawn, um, hate him or love him as a character, he is a fan favorite, and when people are like, "Okay, well, I had hope for Ahsoka, now I'm not so sure." And they'll say things like this with any franchise, but, this specifically with Star Wars, they'll say like, "Well, you know what? We still need to give it time. We still need to give them an inch. We still need to give them a mile, so to speak." Like, they're these people are giving their enemies so much leniency when their enemies really should be punished. How should they be punished? They need to be irrelevant. That's the ultimate punishment for your ideological enemies, really. And they are your political enemies. They are your ideological enemies. Um, these people over at Disney, they hate your being. They hate who you are. It's there. That's not. They've made it evident, and yet some people want to hold on to the life of Star Wars. But I believe something like Star Wars can still exist in your mind, in your memory, in your pastime with the good things of Star Wars, not the bad things of Star Wars. Like, think Star Wars, Marvel, none of these franchises have to continue. They don't have to continue. You can still enjoy what came before, still enjoy it, and not have to worry about another project taking place for years on end, or maybe even forever. Maybe at the closing of something like Star Wars or even Marvel, like, let's say Disney finally relinquishes, like, maybe 10 years down the road, and says, "Well, we're done." And then maybe Marvel will never come back. Maybe Star Wars will never come back. And is that a tragedy? I don't think so, because Star Wars at a point in history was great. And the Star Wars stories that are great remain great. Nothing's changed about those stories. And I want to get into this idea too. I was actually going to start with the stream with this idea, but I wanted to get into the idea of a YouTuber I had come across, and I saw that he was doing a live stream. He's an up and coming YouTuber who wants to support independent work, and his personality is not really my cup of tea, but often on I'll just kind of see, okay, what is he talking about? What are his guests talking about and stuff like that. And there was one live stream where I was in the chat. I decided to actually participate, and he was saying with Force Awakens, he was so livid. He was so angry with The Force Awakens when he loves Star Wars all his life. And when Force Awakens happened, he was livid to the point of illness. Now, first of all, I'd be very careful. Like, no matter how much you love something, don't make yourself sick over something. Like a death of a loved one, okay. Yeah, like, if you're ill from grief or struck with grief, that's an emotional and psychological reaction, but it's also a physical reaction, like something that actually can make you sick. I would say please reserve that if you can. And I'm not saying this lightly. Please reserve this for very serious things in your life. Now I know Star Wars is a serious thing for most people, for me too. Like the hero's journey with Luke Skywalker, absolutely a serious thing. And but I remember him saying, like, it made me so angry to the point where I actually got sick. He made himself sick because he was so angry. And I didn't comment on that. Like, that was just my own internal reaction to his take on that. But he did say, after saying that, he did say, "I can't watch any Star Wars. I can't even go to the original trilogy anymore because what Disney has done." And I want to say this lovingly, not to this person. He doesn't know who I am, but if you've had a similar experience with Star Wars or something like that, I just want to say, uh, just from the bottom of my heart, you can enjoy Star Wars original trilogy no matter what Disney has done. I mean, even with my thumbnail, like, I was like, "Man, that's a good shot of Princess Leia." It's classic. It's awesome. It's wonderful. We all love that scene, you know? We all love hearing John Williams' score with just a little bit of insinuation of her theme, or at least, like, the flute, you know? I think there was a little bit of a subtle flute before she tries to stun one of the stormtroopers. Classic. That will never get old for me, you know, that it's just it's great. It's great. And it will always be great to me. It will always be great in my mind. I say this very seriously because when people say things like that, when they say, "I can't watch the original trilogy anymore because of what Disney has done," you know what that does? That means, in at least in your state of mind, Disney has won. Disney has achieved its objective in destroying you, in destroying your mind, in destroying your spirit because of that decision you made. You not being able to enjoy what you loved because Disney destroyed it, that means they won. They won the battle, they won the war, you lost the war. I would really want to encourage people to look at that last scene with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and enjoy it for what it is. Not what happens 25 years, 35 years down the road when Disney usurps the stories and the characters. Like, I don't even care that it was Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford who played the characters in the sequel trilogy. I don't care. Like, even if Mark Hamill absolutely endorsed the sequel trilogy, like, today, like, said right now, saying, "You know what? Sequel trilogy was true Star Wars." It's like, he could say that. He played Luke Skywalker. He played the most aspirational character ever, and it will mean nothing to me. It's like, sorry, that doesn't validate any of Disney Star Wars, even if you say that. Um, but the original trilogy, that's that's there to be enjoyed, and it's timeless. And when people say, "I can't watch it anymore," it's like, that's exactly why Disney did what it did with Star Wars. That's exactly the objective of not just the sequel trilogy, but all the failed projects, all the Ahsoka usurping Luke Skywalker, Rey usurping Luke Skywalker, like, all the projects that follow the Filoniverse. It's all for the objective of destroying what has come before. Now they can't do that if you have it in your heart and you have it in your mind that, "Well, no, it's there for me. It exists within me. It exists within my community of friends and family who love the old stuff." But as soon as you say, "I'm done, I'm out, no more Star Wars," even no more even say this of Marvel and DC too, you know, they won. Warner Brothers won with DC if you make that decision. Disney with Marvel has won if you've made that decision with not going back to the old Marvel stories. You know, so that was kind of a rant, but I wanted to make that point. It's like I have heard more than 1 or 2 people say that, like, I can't watch the old stuff." It's like, you admit defeat when you do that. And my heart goes out to people like that because I just I can't imagine, like, enjoying a clip of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, and then having it in the back of my mind like, "Well, it's all over for me. It's all over for it's all over for Star Wars." Like, no, no. Now, I wanna go back to the chat real quick. We're still gonna be talking about hope a little bit, but, I think I did see a super chat. Thank you, Eldridge Fan, for, that, for $5. You say, "Sometimes the best hope is turning your back on Numenor. It can't be saved." Good. Leave it to Sauron and sink it, and it will sink and build Gondor and Arnor on a new shore. Exactly right. Oh man, that's first of all, wonderful tale of Numenor. The faithful, those true to the gods, those men, the race of men that was true to Iluvatar and to Manwë and all the gods of Valinor, they left Numenor. Numenor could not be saved. Sauron and the wicked kings before him corrupted Numenor. It was a gift of the gods. And after how many generations? Wasn't it like 30 generations or whatever? It was a long time. They finally, I don't think it was that long, but anyway, uh, they finally said they had enough. Like they first ignored the gods and the goodness of the gods in Iluvatar after Iluvatar and the gods had given Numenor to the race of men, to the faithful race of men who defeated Morgoth. And then they first ignore the providence of the gods, and then they start to complain about them and then start to retaliate and defy the the good and gracious gods. And the faithful, Isildur, excuse me, I forget his father's name for some reason. But anyway, Isildur and his father. It's been a while, guys. I'm missing the names there, but you'll put it in the chat. They left. Well, Isildur had to, of course, fight through the sentinels, the wicked sentinels of Sauron, to get the sapling, the scion of Nimloth, the original Nimloth, the fair. He fought his way, then got poisoned, and then they left. All of them left. All the faithful left Numenor to its ruin. There was no saving. Not when the king decided to send an armada to the west. And yeah, and I think the fans who continue supporting, who continue to support uh, DC, Disney, Warner Brothers and Disney and all that, they would be like the people who lived on Numenor saying, "Guys, it's going to get better." Yeah, they're going against the gods, and yeah, the actual good race of men, they're leaving on and finding new things to do and to see and stuff like that. But it will get better. Don't leave Numenor. It will get better. Yeah, that's great. That's a perfect comparison. Thank you. All right. So anyway, yeah, talking about hope. Let me grab a swig of water. What's been happening here with hope? There's a good side of hope that I hadn't mentioned. A trait to remain faithful in difficult circumstances, as with Aragorn saying, "There's always hope." So you do want to avoid despair. Despair, as some scholars, as some of Tolkien's scholars would compare despair as a type of sin, because you're not a fortune teller. Like you really can't despair the future or the outcome of something you have no knowledge of. Like you don't know everything that's going to happen. So despair, as some would say, is a kind of sin. So because of that, you have to have hope remain intact. It's a virtue, and it's a good trait to have for the edification of the soul, your own personal soul, and for the well-being of others. So hope has a good side, but hope also, as we've seen, has been there's been a malpractice of hope in our culture, and it's kind of it's come down to what I've said before, where people, first of all, are placing hope in others who do not deserve it. Like, how many years is going to take for people to learn that Hollywood and all those people have no intention of learning their lesson? Oh, they're going to learn this time. Yeah, they like what's the recent project, Wish? First of all, okay, props to Disney. Props to Disney. I'll give Disney credit for trying something original. And by original, I think they were just trying to draw what they had from the past or whatever. I think that was the overall sentiment. So it wasn't a reboot of anything. It wasn't a refashioning of anything. Well, that's good. So Disney, keep it up. Try to stay original, even if it's terrible. Where was I going with that? I think I lost my train of thought. It, but where was I going with this? I was going. I don't know. We'll see. I didn't have a lot of good sleep last night too. I should have warned you. Um, but I'll my train of thought will probably come about. But talking about hope, um, people are constantly giving so much leniency. Like they're rewarding their enemies with this really false presumption of hope, saying, "Guys, if we just hold on, it's going to get better." It's like, it's one thing to have hope and then you having control over the situation. It's a whole other thing where you are having this hope and seeing the constant destruction and obliteration of something you love. And that's when you need to pull out, but that's where some people are refusing to pull out. And here's why. For for a good few years now, a lot of people, a lot of fans would use hope as a type of virtue signal. They would say, "We need to hold out. We need to stay focused and stay home in on this hope for Disney to get better, for Lucasfilm to get better. As long as Lucasfilm keeps getting our message, you know, our message in saying, we're very unhappy with what you've done to these characters. We're gonna pull out after if you're not gonna um pull through with this new show, if you're not gonna be faithful to Kenobi, for instance, we're gonna leave." Oh, no. Oh, no, no. They didn't leave. These people, they didn't leave. These fans, instead of leaving, they just mocked Disney. But they mocked Disney while giving them money and attention. It's kinda like if you now it would be an uncomfortable situation, but let's say someone in the physical space, like at a restaurant or something, knew who you were and they hated who you were, and they tried to, like, um, make fun of you in public, like publicly speaking, like in the public space. So they are ridiculing you in front of your face, in front of your friends and family, and in front of everyone else surrounding. But while they're doing that, while they're ridiculing you, they're giving you money or they're giving you an endorsement of some kind, giving you a promotion, giving you a leg up somehow while ridiculing you. That's exactly the treatment that fans have been giving the likes of Disney and likes of Warner Brothers. And if other fans would say, "No, stop with this hate watching, stop with this ridiculing, just ignore it and move on to other stuff," the previously, the aforementioned fans, I don't know why I gave it quotes, they would say, "Well, you're just being so pessimistic." Like, because, we're making fun of them, but we're still having the hope it's gonna get better. We're still sending them the message. We're having the hope it's getting better. And then you'd be called things like you being cynical, being pessimistic, you're a black pill. How dare you not have the hope that we have? Star Wars is all about hope, guys. That was I heard that argument everywhere. Like for fans who finally said no, like after they said no to the sequel trilogy and they and they'd be ridiculed by other fans saying, "Well, Star Wars about hope." Uh-oh. Did I glitch out, guys? Oh, I forgot to change my Wi-Fi. 1 second. 1 second. Ah! Alright. Are we good? I forgot to switch Wi-Fi to the good Wi-Fi, so I'm actually gonna check down the chat, if you wanted to tell me if I look okay or sound okay. Let's see. Well, no one said anything, so that's good. But anyway, that's kind of the malpractice of hope. That's kind of the bad side of hope where it's where people are just holding on saying it's gonna get better when the opposite is evident. It's like, no, it's not gonna get better. These people are running these franchises into the ground on purpose. As I said before, their objective is to destroy the spirit of Star Wars and the spirit you have. They wanna break your spirit. They wanna demoralize you. That is their objective. When people kinda scratch their head saying, "Why are they losing so much money? Why are the ratings dropping and Disney's not learning?" When is Disney ever gonna learn? Disney's never gonna learn because they're programmed to make their objective in defeating you. That's the only objective they have with running these stories into the ground, you know? And so I think finally at last, it took a good 7 or 8 years, but I think at last people are finally saying no. And thank goodness for the likes of people like Eric July giving them the alternative. Now, I will say this, the alternative needs to be something original and something precious to you. But I've said this before. I'm just not into the reactionary thing, like with what Daily Wire is doing. Like, yeah, we're giving them the alternative. I'm like, no, you're just giving them the reactionary. Like our stories are not woke. Whoa, amazing. Now maybe their stories are good. I don't watch Daily Wire and I don't watch their productions and stuff like that. So I'm not going to make any comment on their quality. But the way they frame their projects is like, guys, we're this, but we're not woke. It's like, then I'm not interested. Like, just give me an interesting story. So I think I had more things to say about hope and stuff. Um, I mean, like I'll just kind of ask this question: why to fans who keep hoping in things like as soon as they see like a change in the tide, like something like Dave Filoni getting promoted to work directly with Kathleen Kennedy, like, okay, guys, it's now happening. The new age of Star Wars has begun. I'm like, well, you're not wrong about that. Like, Star Wars is in a new era, and it's under the direction of Filoni, and that's a bad thing. People are thinking, well, you know what? Maybe this change is going to be the change for the better. It's like you just saw the failing of the Ahsoka show. That was exclusively Filoni's project. What more hints do you need? Like, they're not even hints. They're just like, guys, he's not talented. He's a creative hack who wants to usurp all the original characters with his own characters. It's like, no, but there's a change. Maybe it's gonna get better. And then even if someone like Kathleen Kennedy resigns, who's gonna replace her? It's gonna be some up and coming person with the exact same philosophies, the exact same business strategies, and the exact same ideology. It's gonna be the same. Nothing's gonna change. And then people are saying, just give it time. It's like, you know what? No, you're just slowing the death of Star Wars even more. It's like, to me, Star Wars as an active current project, like I keep quoting. I just want to. I don't know why I do that, because maybe I'm on the camera for the first time in a long time. Current Star Wars is like the active current projects of Star Wars is not Star Wars. Therefore, Star Wars has died, at least to me. Anyway, that's kind of I'm going more on a rant. Yeah, one final thing before I get back into the chat, I wanted to say something. People who hope in Disney, especially like with all the shenanigans and everything that's happening with Bob Iger and stuff like that. Like, I think it was him or whether an interview or something else I heard, and I don't know how long he said this, a long time ago or just recently. I don't know. But he said, "Oh, we need to recalibrate." I'm paraphrasing what he's saying, but we need to recalibrate and then focus on quality. Think about that statement for a sec. We need to focus on quality. For any business, that's a given. You should always focus on quality. When is it a situation where you're not focused on quality? Especially when you're Disney. Quality, until recent years, quality has never been a problem with Disney before. Disney has always been, especially with animation, but also fairy tales, adaptation of fairy tales, it's pretty much been unparalleled in quality. So what a strange thing for the CEO of Disney to say, "Oh, you know what? We gotta backtrack and focus on quality." Yeah, like any business savvy person would focus on that. That's the first thing but you shouldn't even focus on quality. Like, quality should be pretty much and instinctive. It should be instinct as someone who is in charge of a multi-billion dollar company. But even any small businessman would say, "Yeah, like, quality, sure." It's like no one would think to say, "Well, it's messy, but just put it out there." And I believe in being prolific, don't get me wrong, but make sure it's make sure you got a high standard for these things. But what a weird thing to say. So people are like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, he said that. He wants to focus on quality. Well, maybe we'll give him a little bit more leniency. We'll still hold on with hope." And RJ from the Fourth Age said it wonderfully on his last video. He said, "It's not a change of heart, it's a change of tactics." So whatever news is kind of floating around, whatever change in the tone, maybe Bob Iger's tone has shifted, and he's trying to placate the situation. He's trying to pacify, the investors and stuff like that. He's being a businessman and saying corporate things, to make the situation better. But so any shift in the narrative, any change uh, in the tone, anything that people are saying amongst themselves or saying to each other directly or to the audience, to the fans, it's like it's not a change of heart. It's a change of tactics. That was RJ from the Fourth Age. Perfectly summed it up. Just like, yeah, don't think a change is a change for the better. Nothing is going to change in the way of their wanting to tell a story. They may say that. They may say, "Oh, well, we've been telling stories the last few years that culturally is just not, palatable for most people." Like, okay, they can say something like that, but it's not gonna they're not gonna change. They're not gonna change. So they need to just run the business into the ground, and we just move on to different things. Old stories, like I'm doing with old classic science fiction, or new stories, with what people are doing with new independent projects. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to sum up with talking about hope is a lot of people have now what is pretty much delusional false hope. And then they'll kind of throw it out like it's the right thing to do. Hoping is the right thing to do, and shame on you for your pessimism and being so cynical and black-pilled for not having that hope. Like they'll throw that at me. Maybe not. Maybe I think it's getting less and less now that I think about it. But last year, there would be fans against fans saying, if you're not holding out on hope for Star Wars, you don't know the meaning of Star Wars. It's like you're not a real Star Wars fan. I saw that all over YouTube. I stopped watching YouTube. I stopped watching a lot of commentators over this last year. But when I was watching them, and I would see the comment section, and they would say, no, real Star Wars fans are holding out on hope, just like Princess Leia. It's like, nope, nope. This is when you need to quit. This is when you need to quit. So we'll talk about quitting, but let me go ahead and get into the chat. Okay, Big Al says, Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. Okay. Gambler that's a song. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's see what you guys are all saying. Sweet Chris of mine, welcome. Nice to see you. Yeah, yeah. Megatron puts it. He basically just summed up everything I was saying. He's like, there's a difference between having hope and just outright being delusional. Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, like, just because you lose hope in something doesn't mean you lose the fight. Like my personal fight against the nonsense that Disney is doing is turning to other things, recommending good things, old or new, and then also just kind of, you know, still pushing the idea. I talk about Disney, so I'm kind of making Disney relevant in this way, but I'm also pushing the idea saying when you ignore them, that's good. That's the best thing. That is the best thing you could do to win this battle against Disney is straight up ignore them. And people might say, "Well, you're contradicting yourself because 'cause you're talking about Disney." But I'm talking about Disney in the cultural and societal sense. Irrelevancy, I've said this on so many comments as so many comments on different YouTube channels, is irrelevancy is no, what'd I say? Relevancy is their currency. It's not actual money. It's attention and the constant cycle of attention that they're getting. Bad attention, great attention, doesn't matter. Like, even the shills today are starting to preemptively say, "Oh, this is gonna be a bad film. This is the oh, man, this is good the trajectory, the box office projections or whatever, this is gonna be bad." Like, even the shills are saying that of, the Access Media or whatever. Even there's like, I told this to Fan Man on his stream. I said, "Come 2024, you're gonna see a whole shift in narrative where the shills are preemptively saying what YouTubers and the Phantom Menace have always been saying have always said." And, I don't know why. I think they just wanna be ahead of the other YouTube commentators, maybe. That they're pulling out in a way. I don't know why. I don't know what the motive is there, if only to, I guess, outgun the narrative before their enemies get a hold of that narrative. I don't know. But that's gonna be the narrative for 2024. They're gonna start preemptively bashing Disney projects, Marvel projects, Star Wars projects. They're gonna preemptively bash Lucasfilm. You just watch. I don't know what the motivation is there for that. But actually, there is one motivation for this. Negative attention is still currency. It's still their currency to keep them afloat. It won't last that long. I can't imagine it lasting more than a year. But anyway, 1 second, 1 second. And then we'll get into the chat. Gotta just grab some water. All right. Let's see. Oh, Brian Gilmartin says he's been having a cold all week. That's too bad. But you've had time to catch up on drawing. Yeah, colds are fine. I think when I have a fever, I'm out of commission. Depends, like, actually, I think I remember this. Philippa Boyens, I think her name is Boyens, if I remember correctly. Yeah, the writers for Lord of the Rings. So that was her son in that part. That's cool. I think I heard that and maybe I've forgotten it. Mm. All right. Yeah. Andrea says, "Ride out with me, ride out and meet them." So great. Oh gosh. It's been years since I've seen The Lord of the Rings. I used to watch that religiously. I used to watch that, like, probably multiple times a year. I need to watch it again. Yeah, Megatron says, "You must." Yeah, like, this is Master Yoda saying you must learn to let go of everything you fear to lose. I mean, Yoda needs to say that to the fan base for sure. So far I'm good. Has anyone said anything about the Wi-Fi connection? I was on the wrong Wi-Fi, so it kind of buffered a little bit, but looks like it's good so far. I got 21, 22 people, and thank you guys for coming in. I feel so special. Where was I with the chat? Yeah. Okay, so Eldritch Fan is kind of agreeing with me. You say when you make yourself sick over something like Star Wars, like, your enemy has won. Like, how powerful a tactic that enemy can do, where the enemy, this is almost like a premise for a sci-fi novel, is like where the enemy can actually do something that will psychologically hurt you, even from a distance. They don't even have to know you. They just have to make something you love an abomination, and it affects you psychologically. Like, that's pretty powerful, and you can't let people do that. Like, and I know, like, I'm a very visceral person. Like, you know, like I must have said this before. I don't think I have too much of a problem with it now. First of all, I do thank God. I do thank Him that I do not have hypochondria. Or is it? Did I say that right? Hypochondriac. I'm not sick with the idea of being sick or whatever, or having a disease or cancer or whatever. Thank goodness. However, I do struggle. I have struggled even with a scene in a movie. I've struggled with hypotension. Hypotension has been a thing that has afflicted me in the past. And so I know what psychology can do to you in the physical space, like with your body. And so if you have an enemy that can actually work to destroy you, to make you ill, ooh, that's a terrifying thought. And so when I hear people say, I'm so mad at Star Wars, it makes me sick. Like I'm literally ill. Like they've got power over you. Your enemies have power over you if you make yourself ill over what they have done. By the way, I'm away from my microphone. I'm like way away. So maybe I should check YouTube for a second if it sounds fine. I don't know. Hey, you're all good. I'm all good? Okay. That was my husband, Professor Geek. Oh. I must have said it so much. So let's see. Jacob Wall, welcome. You say, at what point does hope become a weakness? Is it hope without action? Well, that's a very good point, Jacob Wad, because the fans, this is the problem with something like the fandom menace. I want to say this carefully because maybe some people in here are part of the fandom menace. So I want to speak carefully when I say this, but like there it's kind of like activism. You know how people think they're changing the world with their activism and their protests? No, you're only making people angry. You're only making the world angry and annoyed with your protesting. But you think you're doing something for the better. You think you're changing the world when you're really not. That's what the Phantom Menace is doing in a different way. They think their outcry, like if we just say it hard enough and fast enough, if we just keep piling on how bad everything is, Disney will change its ways. It was like, what? You're just being activists that are annoying online in the online space. The real activism against Disney is not seeing the movies. And I dare say, I'm sorry. Like, I want to say this very carefully to the Phantom Menace, and I don't watch any of the YouTubers anymore. And I don't consider Eric July at all part of the Phantom Menace. He's affiliated friend-wise, like he's friends with them, but like he does his own stuff. I'm more interested in what he's doing with his new stuff. Where was I going with that? I'm like, well, I was going to say something to the Phantom Menace. I lost my train of thought. This is what happens when I go on a tangent. I guess it will come back to me. But like, I want to say to people who are engaging with the Phantom Menace, it's like you're only going to vanquish Disney and vanquish all their horrible abominations when you don't watch the films, when you don't watch the television shows, and even more. And this hurts because there are a lot of good people in the Phantom Menace when you don't watch the videos supporting the hate watching. I had to stop. Like, I think last year I was like, this I guess it's entertaining, but it's getting old. It's getting old to me. But the thing is, if you actually cut the cord from that level, because that's deep, that's the root of it all. If you cut the cord of relevancy with everything involved with what Disney is doing, hate watching, supporting their shows, watching their movies or whatever, that's the final death knell on Disney. But until that happens, as long as people keep making content on how bad everything is, Disney's going to survive. That's how they survive. Relevance, relevance, relevance is the currency. It's not the physical dollar. It's not the credit card. It's not even the cash you pay for their merchandise at Walmart. It's relevance. That's their currency. Let's see. Brian Gilmartin says, I'm at a point these days where I just ignore anything new being done in American media. These days, it's all about Japanese games and anime. I mean, yeah. I mean, I can't speak for the quality of Japanese media these days. I mean, I know, is it Ghibli? Is that how you pronounce the Ghibli Studios with new Miyazaki? But I didn't know Miyazaki was still around. Like, I saw Spirited Away. I think when I was a kid, I saw Kiki's Delivery Service. I think that's her name. Can't even remember. And he's still producing stuff that seems to take hold too, so that's good. Megatron says, "Read Heir to the Empire. Drown yourself in the proper continuation of the Star Wars universe and just ignore everything Disney does." Yeah, actually, I've read. No, yeah, I think definitely once I've read Heir to the Empire. I've enjoyed it. I do enjoy it. Believe it or not, and Prof is gonna just roll his eyes. Thrawn is not my favorite villain. He's just he didn't send me, but I get the appeal. Um, Samuel Proctor says, "You're in the 7th grade when The Force Awakens came out. All that shiny distractions blew away my mind." I mean, visually, it was kind of good. Um, Ignoring the criticism and let's see. And it was your favorite for many years. Ignoring the criticisms I myself would have given if it weren't Star Wars. Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I didn't know Star Wars that well when I saw The Last Jedi. I'll be honest with that. I thought I knew. And then when I started hearing what people were saying about Luke Skywalker, I was like, "Oh, that does make sense." Because I was impressed with the sound design. I was impressed with the visuals. Um, Now I didn't like The Last Jedi. There was something I was put off by The Last Jedi. I couldn't put it into words. I was like, something's off. And then I would talk to my sister about it and then my dad about it. And I think my dad didn't like The Last Jedi. He didn't like Luke. He didn't mind Kylo Ren and stuff like that, but he didn't like Luke's treatment. And he's like, by all standards, I love my dad, but he's a normie. But even him as a normie take, he's like, that was not the right way of making Luke the way they made him. Yeah, Final Fantasy fan says, "Hope indeed is powerful. You shouldn't be blinded by it." Austin says, "Wow, what good advice of what hope should be, Sound Engraver. Thank you. I hope so. I hope so. We have to be. I hate to say this, but we have to be pragmatic with our hope and how we hope. Yeah, hope shouldn't be blind. And I think it's blinded, or I would say a false hope. Like, you know, here I'll just be very forward with this. Like, I don't believe Disney as a company can be redeemed. Now, people might say, well, that's not Christian of you to think that. As a company, it's not a person. I'm not talking about someone's soul. I'm talking about some corporate entity. Walt Disney is not Disney now. Like whenever I talk about Disney, it's just Disney as an entity. I'm not talking about the man who started it all. So well, you're saying Disney can't be redeemed because it's a person, it's a spirit. It's like, no, he's gone. He left his legacy, and we can thank him for his legacy. But Walt Disney as a person is not what Disney is now. Disney is separate as a corporate entity milking everything into rubbish, just meaningless rubbish. They are milking every single thing they can and then just running it into the ground, like spilling the precious cow's milk in the year of famine. Like they are milking that skinny, starved cow, and it's an entity. So I can say confidently as a Christian, Disney shouldn't be redeemed. There's no redeeming Disney. There's no redemption. And they've made their objective clear. They hate us, they hate culture, they hate America, they hate they just hate our cultural values. They hate what fundamentally makes American what fundam can I talk? I don't think I can talk. I'm getting mad. Disney as a corporate entity fundamentally hates what America what it is that makes America America. There is an American principle, there's an American spirit that they seek to quell with every project. They want you demoralized, they want you defeated, they want you just keeling over and laying in a fetal position, sucking your thumb. They want you so defeated to the point where you don't want to fight back, where you don't want to have hope. They don't want your hope. That's the thing. Disney, as a corporation, doesn't want your hope. They hate you. They love seeing you squirm. They love seeing you struggle. Disney has become, as Professor Geek says, that elemental evil. And so therefore it should not be redeemed. We should not give Disney an inch, not an iota, not one atom of any hope, of any trust. Disney needs to be destroyed, but we're not going to be doing we're not the ones doing the destroying. Disney is doing the destroying. It's destroying itself. It's like Shelob. Shelob is going to become Disney's going to be you know how the end of Shelob, no, not Shelob, Ungoliant. You know the first original she spider of Tolkien's lore. She was so consumed by well, she consumed everything. And then when she couldn't get anything to consume, when she couldn't get the light of the Cimarrols consumed, when she couldn't get orcs and elves and men who have gone astray and into her territory, when she could not consume anything more, she consumed herself. She started eating herself. She was so power hungry, and her hunger was she became a black hole. She was so enamored with hunger and her appetite that she consumed herself and she killed herself eating herself. That's Ungoliant. That's Disney now. It's going to consume itself, and we just need to just watch. Just stand by the shore and just kind of watch it explode from a distance. It's or implode, I would say is the better term for it. Anyway, yeah, so giving it hope, giving it trust is not a good thing. It's a morally deprived thing. So place hope in other things. Place hope in the good, but not in things like Disney. I'm going to keep drinking my tea here. It's cold. It's cold. Anyway, let's continue on down. I was going to talk about quitting, but we're kind of running out of time. I mean, we're not really running out of time. I'm just kind of I didn't realize I've been talking for an hour. Wow. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Continuing on. Final Fantasy fan says, in fact, hope is one of the 9 virtues of the knight said by King Arthur. It is a virtue properly placed. Yes. Tony Grego. Thank you. I needed this. Well, thank you. Thanks for listening. Appreciate that. That actually warms my heart. Thank you. Brian Gilmartin says the problem isn't hope per se so much as yeah, exactly, as you say, misplaced hope. People are putting their hope in the wrong things when a better solution is already available. That's an important point. And sadly, honestly, Brian and others, it's because of addiction. People don't know how to stop the content creation, the consuming the content creation. They say, "Well, it's available, so therefore I should consume it." That's not a reason to consume it. But they made it. Yeah. So? But I gotta see it because they made it. Why do you have to see it? Because I don't know. I don't know. I'm addicted. It's coming to that point. Well, it's been that point really. Like, Fan Man calls it fan addicts. It's like they can't stop watching because they think there's nothing else out there. And I'll be frank, yeah, there are things that are out there. There are other things that are out there, but it's gonna take discipline to stop watching, what you're currently enjoying, even though you're not enjoying because you don't like what's happening. And then you have got to find quality stuff elsewhere, and that does take research, and that does take a little bit of gumption on your part. Like the science fiction that I read, there are new things out there that I give it a chance, and then I'm like, "You know what? This is not my genre, and I don't think the writing is good. I'll have to look for more things." Like, you do have to find the diamond in the rough because we are now inundated with independent art, which is great, independent stories. There have been people who have given me recommendations like, "Oh, you like science fiction, you like Star Wars, you're gonna like this," and I check it out, and it's like, "You know what? No, it's just not the quality is below the standard I have, or the genre is just not my genre. It's just not my thing." But you like science fiction. I'm like, "Yeah, I don't like all of science fiction." So yeah, it's gonna take some research, but there are other things out there. But until people fess up and they say, "Okay, this is my problem," until they make that confession to themselves, to their friends, they're like, "Okay, I have an addiction problem." It's like I have to like there's something that's compelling me, that's pushing me, that's forcing me to watch something just because it's out there, just because I can have it. That's not a good enough excuse. Is so anyway. Samuel Proctor says, unless you're in the pit of despair, in that case, it's understandable to have that bit of despair. I I should know what the reference is, but I don't. Oh, Final Fantasy fan continues. In ours, uh, in adversity, the good knight is not without hope, for he knows dark nights are followed by bright days. So, so times of bitter hardship are followed by seasons of sweet prosperity. Hope is ever present in the knight's positive outlook and cheerful demeanor. Well, it even says in the Bible that God is in the good times and the bad, and the times of prosperity and the times of adversity. Like he doesn't stop adversity from happening. Like you should be the same righteous human being in times of trial, in times of adversity, as you are in times of prosperity, because God is the God of both times. One time is not defining God in a different way. He's consistent throughout. So I think in the same Arturian sense, it's like, yeah, the knight is going to remain resolved. Um, and our resolve really should be, again, not giving Disney and Hollywood that inch and placing our hope in other things. And I was saying this in the chat on Professor Geek's stream last night. Um, you know, I'm going to just use the historical figure. General George Washington had 6 years, more than 6 years of absolute bitterness, hardship, defeat, a few victories here and there, which was awesome, but not the final victory until Yorktown. And it wasn't because just of him and who he was and what he had. He had to rely on almost exclusively, not quite, he had the resolve and he had the leadership, but he had to rely on the benevolence of the French to finally defeat the British in Yorktown with General Cornwallis. And thank goodness the British generals at that time after 6 years of this long, hard war of the American Revolution. We were so blessed to have the British generals at the time have such pride and hubris and not come like, I think it was it Clinton? General Clinton did not go to General Cornwallis's aid. Had he come to Cornwallis's aid and had Cornwallis been a little bit more diligent, had the British been a little bit more diligent with what was going on between the American, rebels, as they called them, the American army. I mean, like, Trenton and, Valley Forge should have been an indication that the American spirit was not yet defeated. And then you got the full force pretty much with the French after 6 years of just bitterness. Then the British admit defeat. General George Washington wins with his comrade, um, uh, Rochambeau, the French general. And even then, even after the British loss at Yorktown, it was another 2 years of hard negotiation before evacuation day, before all the British loyalists and the British soldiers themselves left for good. 2 years after the final victory of the American Revolution, of hard negotiation, because why? General George Washington and his comrades would not bow to the king's terms of what freedom should be. They would not relent. They would not budge. Washington wanted absolute freedom for the American people, for his country. He wasn't going to negotiate under England's terms, or at least, you know, under certain terms. Of course, there's always going to be negotiation of some kind, but he wasn't going to have England define what American victory and liberty is. And that took another 2 years. After the final victory against the British and the American Revolution, it still took another 2 years. Another 2 years of absolute resolve on Washington's part and the part of his comrades and his allies, you know, with the French, also with Benjamin Franklin when he was over in Versailles. 2 years of absolute undogged resolve after defeating the British. That's the kind of resolve we need for our culture and the culture of art in particular, art and entertainment. We need that same resolve as General George Washington. And we need patience. We need patience, but we also need hope placed in the good. Washington never hoped, even after, I don't think he did, unless there's some writings that contradict my guess. He would, I doubt that he would have hoped that England would know what liberty was for the American colonies. No, no. Congress wasn't really aiding Washington for many years either. So there were a lot of political battles that he had to face too. Anyway, my point is we need to place our hope in other things, not Disney. And we need to have the resolve of our American icons, our American heroes, in doing that. So yeah, yeah, you gotta see England, or you got not England now, but you gotta see Disney as the Americans fought and saw England. You know, like, okay, England, you gotta go. We're gonna fight you tooth and nail. We're gonna fight you in those long winters until you go. And it was 8 years after declaring independence. 8 years. They never taught me that in history, by the way. They never taught me in history classes like it took 8 years after declaring independence. And that's the same resolve we have to have. So let's go. Let's keep moving. I might talk about I might talk about quitting another time because I think we're just kind of running too long. I still want to talk in the chat, but just to sum it up, there's a time to hope and there's a time to quit. It is time to quit the bad. It's time to quit that corporate art that is just eating itself alive. That's where I wanted to go into detail and into a little bit more depth about quitting in general and really when to quit, when it's appropriate to quit, when it's not appropriate to quit. But I guess hope was the theme of the day. Maybe this will be like part 1. When to quit, when to hope, part 1. All right. Let's see. So 407. Is that how you pronounce your name? You say, "Welcome. I haven't seen you before. Welcome. I have no problem watching or playing old Disney Star Wars, but anything after The Last Jedi, I just refuse to engage with." Yeah, Filoni stuff has never interested me. And well, the thing is, even and that's good too, because he's not creative like people say he is. He usurps everything. His everything he touches turns to cancer. And even so, even if he had some good ideas with, like, the Clone Wars animated series, guess what? None of that matters anymore. Because like, what's the continuation? Rebels, and then what's the continuation of that? Like, the Ahsoka show. So why does it even matter? Even if there is good stuff. Samuel Proctor makes a good point. I hope I'm not skipping too many, comments, but, I'm not sure Disney should even be original to be good. Its legacy is based on adapting old stories, that have stood the test of time. Okay, that's a fair point. That's what they did best. Pixar is, one for original stories. So, yeah, I think well, and that's ironic too. I didn't even know this, but Wish is Pixar. Like, I remember A Bug's Life, I remember Monsters, Inc. I loved those stories. Pixar was really good when it started. And now and so I recently discovered Wish is a Pixar project. I'm like, "Dang." Well, I mean, there was the atrocity that was Lightyear too, so, man, Pixar, how far you have fallen. Pixar was great. Pixar was so nice, so good. And I haven't seen A Bug's Life since, like, it first came out when I was in the 6th grade, but I need to, like, just see if the animation has held up. I'm sure it has. And then they were trying to do the 2D, 3D thing. You should have just done 2D. Like, the animation I never saw Princess and the Frog, I probably should, but the small scenes, the bits and pieces I've seen of that film, the animation is gorgeous, I love it. 1 second, I have to cough. So, yeah, you're right, actually, it adapts fairy tales, so I guess maybe it shouldn't be original, I don't know. But because of the partnership between Disney and Pixar, because now Disney owns Pixar, it's like, I mean, you should just have a banquet of amazing content. I was actually, Prof was playing, Knights of the Old Republic 2, which I'm really enjoying, and he's in this space, and I was kinda looking at it, like, it's a cool room, it's a cool looking place, and I'm like, Disney with the money it had, Disney could make its own Star Wars theme park, and even more than that, like, even just this one idea would make billions of dollars in profit because 'cause it'd be just so good. A Star Wars theme park that's laser tag, you know? Laser tag, like, oh, a really well-built laser tag theme park, and then every part of the park is, like, a different game, like, from Knights of the Old Republic. That even people who wouldn't have played those games would still, like, go with family because it's laser tag. Who doesn't like laser tag? Oh, that's my $1,000,000,000,000 idea. It'd have worked too. I know it would have, but that's not gonna happen. Uh, anyway. Sending in Brave Megatron, I mean, I don't know if you believe this what you say, like, you say Disney doesn't care about the message. Bob Iger said it himself, he doesn't care if his movies are bad so as long as they make money, but the thing is, they're not making money. They're draining money. They're just putting it down the drain like it's nothing. So, I don't know. Yeah. So, let's see. Let's see. They forget that this Megatron says they forget that the same company that filmed Mulan, oh yeah, near a concentration camp in China, Disney. There goes my monetization. Disney doesn't deserve any hope from fans. Yeah, they're straight up evil and stuff like that. Basically, Hydra at this point cut one head and another one rises in its place. Yeah, cut off one head. Yeah, again, relevance. That's the biggest and best weapon we can give Disney, or we can assault Disney with. Yeah, Final Fantasy fan says, "Oh, just give it time." Yeah, we gave it enough time, and nothing has changed. Yeah, well, things have changed, but they've changed for the worst. Um, yeah. Brian says Bob Iger has been saying he would focus on quality, and look what's come of it. It's like, yeah, I was, man, stream is getting a little long. I'll keep going down, but like, I was watching a few YouTube, this animator who's making comments on, you know, how far Disney has fallen with its protagonists, like the adorkable characters, like the adorkable female protagonists, like they don't really have any objective or any personality. He said this was the problem with the new Wish protagonist, that she didn't have a meaningful objective or story herself. She was just quirky. She just was there to look cute or something like that. And the same is true for villains too. Apparently, like the villain for Wish was, I guess he was supposed to have a sympathetic backstory, but then in the other half of the latter half of the film, he turns out straight evil or whatever. Like, apparently, he's got the dark hold or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Like the dark hold version of whatever is in that universe or whatever. And here he in a and I made a comment on that video because like you had Ursula, you had Jafar, you had Scar, willing to kill his brother to be king. You had Cruella who skins puppies. Like you had very offensive characters who were villains. Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, like a very evil man, who really, like, with his song Hellfire, like, I mean, it gets me on edge even as a Christian, saying how far people can go in their sin and their awful thoughts. He's a perfect cautionary tale of what not to do, and he gets his comeuppance, which is very scary. Like, it's actually like, Christians need a little bit of a reminder of what hell could be. And Disney did that with Hunchback of Notre Dame. Um, Disney was not afraid of making their villains so odious and so awful. And then recently with the complaint with Ursula, I made this point on my stream many months ago, with the new Ariel Little Mermaid remake. What was it? It was like people complained that Ursula said bad things about women in her song. It's like, well, first of all, I don't think she did. And second of all, if she absolutely did, it doesn't matter because she's a villain. But Disney's catering to that crowd. They're like, "Oh no, Ursula did say bad things about women." Oh, shocker. A villain saying bad things about people. Wow. It's like, if you can't even make a villain say bad things, let alone do bad things or think bad things, like, you don't know how to write a villain. And the thing is, I think they were trying to have the villain of Wish have a sympathetic backstory, and then they're like, "Oh, but we gotta capture the magic of what makes a villain evil." It's like, well, and apparently this animator channel, he's an animator himself. He's like, "You can't do this with a story." That's why the villain in Wish didn't turn out so good. Oh, thank you, Eldritch fan. For your super chat. I felt the same way about Thrawn at first, but he won me over in the hand of Thrawn duology. I don't know that duology. Explored his depths and made him a tragic character. I don't want him to be a tragic character. I think he's fine to be power hungry for his own gain. He had an interesting I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess I'd have to read it first to see what I like about his character, but, I don't mind him being evil. I don't mind him being cold. I just he didn't send me. Oh, I hear my husband. I gotta wrap it up, but it's so many chats. I'll wrap it up in probably about 10 minutes or so. Um, Samuel Proctor says, "Is Phantom Menace still a thing?" Um, I would say yes, but I would also say, uh, it's dying away. I think you would have 1 or 2 channels that are still gonna be lucrative for a good long time, a good 5 years from now, maybe, depending on what Disney does in 5 years. But the culture surrounding Phantom Menace, I see a lot of people pull away. Like, I don't think if Rings of Power, for instance, gets a 2nd season, it probably is gonna get a 2nd season, I think that that's in the works or whatever. I think people who will respond to that on YouTube, I don't think they're gonna have the same viewership as they had when it first came out. I know 2nd seasons have just not been that interesting to people because they said, "Well, we're gonna get mad at the 1st season, so they don't make a 2nd season," and then they make a 2nd season, it's like, "Well, we didn't like the 1st season, why are you making a 2nd season?" "Oh, I guess this is the way of things." Well, I'm out, I'm not interested. So I think a little bit more of that, like 5 years from the road, or down the road, I think that will be the case. I'm just gonna put this up, Captain Glad Pelion, I always say his name wrong, Pelion, is the real brains behind Thrawn anyway. Yeah. I where was he in the Ahsoka show, Al? I'm gonna ask you that honest question. We saw him on the trailer. Um, YouTuber David Viet Stewart, who I'm aware of because I do watch his stuff, made an interesting, review of The Last Jedi as a fever dream, of a talented director who hated Star Wars and everything it was about, but forced it to make a Star Wars movie. Yeah, he called it what did he call it? He called it, like a hate letter to Star Wars? Something along those lines. Yeah, like, Ryan Johnson wanted to destroy the mythos. I remember Taika Waititi back in, like, 2019 on Twitter said, like, I'm gonna ruin your mythos in a minute, baby." It's like, Ryan Johnson already did that, you're too late. "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna ruin your Star Wars." It's like, it's already been ruined. I'm sorry Taika Waititi, I he's just eccentric, which is, you know, part of being an artist, but he's a child. He is a child. He acts so childishly, and he needs to grow up. Joseph Johnson, welcome. Hello. Um, I mean, yeah, Thrawn had it. I agree, Andreas. He had a poetic death. I knew that was gonna happen though. I knew that was gonna happen. I kind of wish it was some way else. Like, and I know it's like kind of more realistic, but I just didn't like that he didn't see Luke Skywalker once. He didn't see any of the characters once. Leia saw him, like from hiding in a compartment or whatever, but like that was it. I didn't like that. And I do like Mara Jade, well, Mary Sue moments. I like Mara Jade, I wanna like her, but, like, she's I also think she could have been written better. Anyway. Oh, by the way, though, Timothy Zahn endorses whatever is gonna happen with Thrawn in the Ahsoka show going forward. So, I'm gonna be talking about Death of the Author in a couple weeks from now, but, there are some exceptions, and Timothy Zahn is a current example of maybe where to place that idea. All right. I'll probably end right at 7:30, but, I'm not working tomorrow except later in the day for teaching, but, yeah, it's quite nice. Scrolling on down, Eldridge Fan says, "What you're saying is we gotta be the rebels." Yeah. I mean, the real resistance, right? Alright, continuing on down. Is Wish not Pixar? I thought it was a Pixar project. Though both studios should be considered, to be the same certain extent. Yeah, Disney and Pixar have used to have distinct voices, so they're now indistinguishable. I see. The minute Lasseter left, everything truly went to yeah. I see, you're right. Actually, that's true. Yeah. Some of the lightsaber duels, from the prequel trilogy are the best of the whole saga. Yeah, that is yep. Yes, yes, yes. Alright. Yeah, Private Eye says you should watch Princess and the Frog, last truly beautiful Disney movie. You know, and for all their, like, hype on making things culturally diverse, I'm like, doesn't okay, so she's a working woman who has a dream, and she's in Louisiana. That's beautiful. I wonder why they didn't really continue Tiana's story. I mean, I don't know the story, so maybe it's got a good enough closure, but, it's like, "Oh, yeah, we need to make our heroes all these different cultures and backgrounds." They're like, "Well, you had that. You didn't even have to say that. You had that with something like Princess and the Frog, you had that with Mulan." I don't know. You had that with Lilo and Stitch, for goodness sake. Oh my gosh. Anyway, keep going down. Gigawalk, says, "The problem is, gigawatt." I think I called you gigawalk. The problem with these is these big networks are approving, 2 seasons without waiting for them to see how the first season goes. Okay, yeah, exactly. Paramount did this with, Halo and Amazon's Rings of Power. Well, they're planning on, aren't they planning, like, 5 seasons with Rings of Power? Hello, Amy L, good to see you. Oh, okay, Big Al is correcting me. Pelion is in The Mandalorian and is readying for Thrawn's return. Okay, I misspoke. I misspoke. All right. Okay, it looks like we're coming on down to the end, which I think is probably a good place to stop here. Um, well, yeah, okay, I'll leave this last comment. Samuel Proctor says, "You don't think Ryan Johnson outright says he hates Star Wars?" Well, it was in his film. I think it only shows in his actions and his illusions, but not outright admission. It was an outright admission then. It is this is now the turn of the tide is now people are just flat out saying, "I don't care about this character." It's like Taika Waititi said that about Thor after the fact, unfortunately, but still. Um, anyway. So anyway, let's kind of wrap it up there. What would be on the dock for next time? I was going to be talking more at length the quitting culture. What is an appropriate use of quitting? What's not an appropriate use of quitting? But I think quitting is pretty valuable, especially when it comes to really your real life, whether it's working a job or prioritizing your life. I did want to talk about that, and also things like quitting the bad content out there for sure. So maybe that will be part two of this stream. You know, when to hope and when to quit. But in any case, I think that would be the stream on the dock for next time. So we're getting into our first season, first week of Advent. The next, uh, what's happening this week? I've been, yeah, well, I like to continue doing music stuff. Uh, I want to get back into SuperCollider. There are just so many house projects, catching up with things like thank you cards and Christmas cards, and the fact that it's Christmas. And so I would say, yeah, it's a little bit, it's going to be a little scant on the content, but I would like to actually continue with this format with getting back into camera. So I know I'm far away, but you can see me just fine. So that's good. So I don't know what I'll do for this week. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what what I shall do with something music related, but I do need to continue composing music. And so if I'm not creating stuff on YouTube, it's because I'm so busy I'm trying to release a track. I was gonna release a track November, so I gotta work on that. But in any case, thank you guys so much for hanging out. We had a great crowd today. Good comments. You guys had wonderful comments. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all the comments, but thank you so much for watching and listening. And until I see you next, keep producing, promoting, and preserving that good stuff you love, and I'll catch you later.